had an interesting experience. Went to Mass here in the basilica of Portugalete here, not far from Bilbao. A 14-kilometer walk down along the river. And anyway, went into the basilica for Mass. And the first thing I noticed, the kneelers had been tied up with plastic, tape things that you put them around and you can tie things tight with them. And I said, oh, interesting. They seem to not like kneelers. Now, whatever your opinion are on kneelers, I mean, we have traditionally knelt at certain moments during the Mass, especially the consecration. It is an old tradition with us Roman Catholics. For the Eucharist, we did used to kneel. I know that's gone out of practice, but they've kind of taken it a step further and saying, well, we're tying them up. Anyway, I went into the sacristy to see what was the story on this, because maybe they're just doing, like Clonard Monastery, they're just doing some remodelations and they'll be back, they'll return. I said, no, we tie them up because people don't use them anymore. I said, oh, okay, so people don't use them anymore. Now, during this Mass, this was the only Mass in the Basilica today, and quite a large population. We're in the outskirts of Bilbao. Let's face it, highly populated area. I don't know how many people are here, but it's not sparsely populated. And you're just not far from the coast as well here. So it's kind of the tourist area. Not one single child. So you had two types of people at Mass. You had the elderly, and you had the Latin American immigrants that have come here because Spain's economy can't survive given its extremely low birth wage. Spain has one of the lowest birth rates in Europe at the moment. 1.1 or something like that. It's and I said to the Mass, I said, what happened to the kids here? And I said it to the organist, and he says the faith has been completely lost by a generation. There's one generation here that it's been completely lost, and that's it. It will be maintained alive by the Latin American immigrants, really, who are descendants of Spanish and Portuguese and Europeans that have come here to work. They come with their faith and they go to Mass. But for the Spanish population, the faith has been completely lost. Now, Spain, in terms of parishes, after Italy, has the highest number of parishes in the world, highest number of churches in the world. So it's quite an interesting country in that respect. But as far as the faith goes, it's kind of died off. Now, the Mass was interesting in itself. I mean, the priest couldn't be bothered to wear a chasuble, which says a lot. You can't, we're so modernist now that even chasubles are out of fashion. Couldn't be bothered to give out the Eucharist. That's all done with lay people now. Ad-libbed parts of the Mass. I mean, when it comes to a stage where you go to Mass, there's so much in here that is being tweaked, you would wonder. But it's an interesting phenomenon to see a whole generation that has lost their understanding what the Catholic faith is. Completely. That whole generation of Catholics have said to themselves, look, there is no value in giving this to my kids. There's no value in proposing this to my kids. A whole generation here in Spain. When I say, I mean, this is not just an anecdote. In Spain, you have the collapse of Catholicism in many ways, and it's only for the movements like neo-catechumenals or Opus Dei, various different Catholic movements that you have in Spain that connect families. There you see the faith very much taught and families trying to keep it alive. But if it wasn't for the movements, Spain would be in a very different place. It's interesting. This experiment that the church has done you know, adoration, we don't need that. And the tabernacle, how much money in this basilica, they have removed the tabernacle and they placed it to, it was hard to find, but it was to one side. I said, how much money we spent on destroying sanctuaries over the last 60 years in Spain. How much money, guys, to destroy the faith at the same time. You know, okay, the faith isn't a basilica. The faith isn't a tabernacle. The faith isn't an kneeler. The faith isn't a chasuble that the priest didn't decide to wear. But these outward symbols mean something. They point to something, you know, and when you treat them with, we don't need them. Well, at the end of the day, the faith just walked out the door. And this is really what's happened in Spain. Which, I mean, as a society, you know, struggles to even replace itself, can't sustain itself without immigration at the moment. And this is the truth of it. I mean, a lot of small towns around rural Spain are completely collapsing because there isn't a new generation to actually replace the older one. And you see people, you know, centering themselves around big urban cities and places like this. But anyway, it was just an interesting observation, you know. And if we were as a society happier without our God, but we're not. We've created other idols. You know, you see in Britain this new debate on euthanasia, on abortion. You know, money is the new idol, work is the new idol. We've created all of these things that we center our life around and we think are so important. At the end of the day, like, that can be taken away. You know, either this proposal of knowing God is something true to offer the world, or it's not. And obviously I believe it's true. I believe it's worth knowing the risen Christ. And this spiritual dimension of the human being, you just can't take away, because once you take away the faith, it would be filled by something else, by superstition, by, you know, New Age, different practices, occult practices, something to fill it. Because why would you give your life to these earthly projects and that will end, that don't provide meaning? You know, we are spiritual beings. We are meant to know God. We are called to know God. But it's fascinating, this modernist project in Catholic Spain, modernist Catholic project, how, you know, it's reached its pinnacle now. We've seen it. Okay, you've won. You know, anything else you want to reinvent? Any more church remodelations you want to do? Or liturgical remodelations? Let's see. This is Spain. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.